less stress, more time, more money. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor. Interview.
Tami, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I know that you've listened to a couple of the episodes for the Cash Flow Contractor, and we're all about less stress, more time, and more money for contractors. And I know that that's a big message that you have for a lot of the contractors that you guys work with in ASA OK.
Yes, we're all about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
And what's ASA OK stand for?
American Subcontractors Association of Oklahoma.
Okay.
Very nice.
So you're a subunit of a national organization, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot to talk about before ASA OK,
Right.
But we'll come back to that. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do now? And then we'll go backwards from there.
Okay. Well, believe it or not, I started out as a roofing contractor.
Commercial, residential, both?
Commercial.
Okay.
Not really what every little girl dreams of as a child to become a roofing contractor, but that's kind of how my life went, and it's worked out well for me. But I went to college to be a teacher, and so I went to do my student teaching and realized pretty quickly that that probably wasn't the career path for me. Fortunately, it was a business teaching degree, and so I took the first job that I could find, and I ended up being a secretary for a company here in Oklahoma City, and they sold a product that our niche market in the roofing industry was putting a sloped metal roof over a flat roof.
Okay.
And this company had the product that made the pitch in between the flat roof and the metal roof.
Put up the joist and rafters.
Right.
Structure
It
to hold
was
it.
a framing system, yes. And so I ended up learning that, and I kind of started there as secretary and moved my way up and just kind of learned everything there was to learn, and got ready to leave there and didn't know what I wanted to do still, but realized that I knew a lot of different things about business. I had done a lot of accounting, but I wasn't a CPA. I'd done a lot of marketing, but I really couldn't go out and find a marketing job and management, and so I kind of realized then that I kind of was an entrepreneur, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. So
Tell me a little bit more about that transition. So go back, you said teacher. You went to school to be a teacher, and then what was it like choosing to work as a roofing contractor?
well, I don't know if I chose it or it chose me. I mean, like I said, I just took a job I wanted to stay in Oklahoma City, and I needed a job, and so.
But you didn't decide to go teaching? You said, no, I'm going to...
I did my student teaching and realized that was not
gotcha.
a career path for me.
Okay.
I was 21, the kids were 18,
And so you took the secretary position, you said?
I took the secretary position.
And what do you think, how big was the company just on...
It was small.
Pretty small,
yeah,
okay.
Maybe 4 or 5 employees.
And so you think that because you were secretary, you kind of got to see all the different areas because it was a small company?
I did, and I made the decision that I was going to learn everything there was to learn there.
Okay.
I was going to make that point if you didn't.
Yeah.
A lot of people an opportunity to learn are in a position that they can learn and grow, and you do it with intent, and it happens. I mean, that's a perfect story.
Yeah, I used to come in at 7:30 in the morning and meet with the estimator, and he'd teach me estimating, and I just wanted to learn. I knew I wasn't going to be a secretary my whole life, and back then, I guess I'm kind of telling my age, secretary was truly a secretary where I mean, it was a lot different than it is today, and so
Yeah.
I was everybody called in, so I knew all the customers. I kind of got to know them,
Yeah.
and it was a different.
I think that's
deal.
a good point that we kind of see is as soon as contractors grow, as soon as they become big enough to where they aren't answering the phones and they aren't on the phone systems, they kind of lose connection with their customers and who they are and what their needs are and what those conversations are, the pain points, all those different things, and they're focused so much on the business that from a marketing standpoint, from a messaging and sales standpoint, they lose sight of all those things. But as secretary, you're getting to see how things are done because you're the one answering the phone. You get the customer complaints.
I really saw the whole process of the business, and the owner and my bosses really didn't even realize how much I was hearing and seeing just talking to the customers, and so I learned a lot through that. And
Until you left, that's when they realized.
Well, I tell you what, it's hard to start at a company as a secretary. They did promote me, and I grew up a lot there. And I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without them. So, but you always have that. You started as the secretary, and that's how they see you. So it's really
got that chip on your shoulder.
It's really difficult.
That's really telling, because that is that's a drawback.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is. I mean, and
not just to you,
to
to the owners, to not realize.
Yeah,
what they
it's
have.
just really hard to become. They always still see you as that little secretary that started. You know, it's just.
Yeah.
I say that. I mean, I moved up in the organization, and
what were some of the roles that you moved into from secretary? If you
well,
moved
they
up?
actually gave. I ended as my title was president, but I don't know that it was.
But you're that little secretarial president.
Yeah, I don't know that
she's
truly,
so cute.
Yeah, and it was. I don't know. They just kind of. I say that I would call myself, I was operational manager on a daily basis. I didn't have the final say though, so I wouldn't.
How many steps were there? Just because I know that not everybody that's listening is a contractor, owner of their business. Some of them might be the secretary or someone who's a manager right now and wants to move up. How many roles do you feel like you had?
Oh, I moved into accounting. That was kind of what I thought I wanted to do, so I kind of moved into that, and then probably marketing. I mean, then I had a guy in there that kind of helped me and taught me the marketing side of it, and more sales than marketing.
Yeah.
And then management. I mean, I moved kind of through all the stages and got a little bit of experience in all. That's why I said I felt like I had a lot of experience in a lot of areas, but when I went to look for a job, I thought, well, what am I?
Yeah, how do you categorize
I mean,
Yeah.
I had, my earnings had gone up to a good level, and I didn't want to start over. And I mean, if I went back because I didn't have the credentials to be a CPA. I didn't have the credentials to be, so I felt like it was hard for me to, I ended up going out into an outside sales position. But right then that's when I knew I wanted to do something on my own.
But
I was going to eventually.
You're just hitting every point. Even earlier when you talked about the things you learned, what we talk about on Cash Flow Contractors, four areas of business: guiding the business, getting the business, doing the business, and administering the business. And you just hit them all. You said you paid attention to accounting. You said you were paying attention to marketing. You said management, which is kind of the operations. And that's the leadership part of management. It's every part of it. And then you raise another great point, one that I've experienced over the years. You have all this experience, but you don't have credential that qualify you to be an accountant,
right,
or to be start a marketing company, but you've got experience.
So I had a little knowledge in all the areas, which I think is kind of what an entrepreneur is. We didn't have entrepreneurial degrees when I was in college, or I think I probably would have went down that path, but that wasn't an option. So
I got a question for you, and this might be a little bit harder, but there's probably contractors out there right now that have that office manager or that operations person that was probably at your level. What could that company have done to keep you around? Was there anything that could have done as far as giving you more autonomy, giving you more responsibility to maybe keep you around, or is it no, I just got to go on my own? Because I know that for some contractors, they have that role, and if they lose it, they're toast. They're gone. Like they don't realize how valuable that asset is.
I don't know if there was anything. I mean, I was ready to move on. I think I knew I wanted to do something.
Yeah.
I didn't want to work for someone. I think I knew I was going to be. I think I knew I wanted to start my own business.
If they would have approached you and said, "Hey, we recognize that you have what it takes to start your own business, and we think you have that desire. We want to be like a partner with you, a minority partner even, and help finance you and get you started." Would you have taken that opportunity, you think?
Probably would have, yeah. I
don't know. Sometimes it's just understanding what really the desires are and the opportunities there. But anyways.
We've got an episode coming up in the future titled "The Evolution of a Business Owner," and you're just laying it out perfectly. You're working as a secretary. I did air quotes. Can't see that.
Yeah.
You're working as a secretary, but you're learning, and that's that's one of the steps, and it prepares you, and then we go on with your story. But yeah, you're just going right down the road.
Right.
Have you always been someone who approaches something that they have no experience, no knowledge of, and believe that you could do it?
Yes.
Do you think that is a characteristic you have?
I'm motivated by challenge, and so that's part of the challenge is, learning something. And, I knew nothing about roofing.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I mean, I did once I started working for the company and learned the product, and so I had the product knowledge, and I had all the product knowledge. I felt like I knew how to estimate. I knew how to all that kind of stuff, but I didn't know the install side. That's when. So I had gone out and I was an outside salesperson, and so I met one of my customers. Said, I'm tired of this business. You need to take it over. I'm like, I don't know anything about the install
customer was
side.
tired of
Yeah,
the
he
business.
was ready to move on, do other things, and he's like, you need, and I didn't know anything about the install side. I knew, I felt like I had the product side, and I knew how to do that, but now we're getting into a whole nother.
Why is that? Why didn't you know the install side?
Because the company I worked with was just a supplier. It was a product supplier.
Gotcha.
They didn't install. So we sold to the contractor. So I knew a little bit about it, but I was really scared of it because you heard the horror stories of getting help and trying to find people, and so he talked me into it, and he said, "Don't you know anybody that can help you with this?" And so I drug my brother in. So that's how that.
Well,
all
this guy, whoever owned the company, had a good eye for talent,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I'd like to think so. Yes.
Yeah.
So let me make sure I understand. You were working at a roofing supply company, moved from secretary all the way to operations manager. Then you went and worked for one of the customers of the roofing supply company.
No, I actually left the supply and went to another supply company.
Oh,
was
another supply
outside
company.
salesperson.
Outside sales for another supply
another
company.
supplier that did the same thing, a competitor.
Okay, gotcha. And then one of the customers of that supply company approached
One of
you.
the subcontractors that I was selling to.
Right.
Said, hey, are you interested in owning your own business, or why don't you take over my business?
So did he remain in the business, or did he just sell to you?
He sold to us. We didn't actually buy his company. We bought some of his assets, and he helped us get started on our own. But we took over his warranties, that kind of stuff. That's
And his
what he was
customer
wanting.
list.
So we got his customer list, and mainly his, in the roofing business, you have to give warranties, and he didn't want to leave a bunch of outstanding warranties. And
Gotcha.
so we took over those.
How long did he stay around to help you guys?
Yeah, that was the funny thing, because he asked, I said, well, my brother doesn't know anything about this either, and so he said, well, I'll hire him, and he can work with us for about a year, and I'll teach him the ropes, and we'll go, y'all can take over. And I was like, okay. And about 3 months later, he was out.
Man,
I say he was out. We started our own, but he helped us. He was a great mentor through the whole thing.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
he
Did you actually pay him for his company? You don't have to say any numbers or anything. But,
No, we actually just bought equipment, so we didn't have to buy.
but he got some kind of cash buyout. You
Yes.
just didn't.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't. He just wanted out, so we bought his equipment.
He wanted out responsibly.
And so that was here in Oklahoma City?
It was
Okay, so you started, what's the roofing
metal
subcontract?
roof contractors.
Metal roof contractors. So you basically take over.
Well, we started. Okay, he was under another name, and so we actually started metal roof contractors.
So really you
My
just bought his
brother.
assets and started a new company.
That's exactly right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes. And
So
yes.
what was like the first thing you did? Like you're getting started here, you're a new business owner. What was the first thing you went and did?
Try to sell work, get jobs. I mean, we had to get, and that's another thing. He gave us our first job. He was in the middle of one. He let us finish it out, and so that was our
cash flow.
Yeah, so we had, and he gave us like 6 months to pay our first. He did a balloon payment of
Gotcha.
the equipment, so we had gave us a job, gave us 6 months. So we had 6 months to make the money to make our first payment. And
Did you have any capital of your own to begin with, or was it all off that first job?
we had very little. We had a little bit.
Sweat
We had
equity.
A little bit. Not
So-
very much. So we worked out of our house.
Yeah.
We had a pickup. I mean, it was. We were really the true. I would sell a job. My brother would, he had a crew and he would get it installed, and we couldn't sell another one because we only had one crew. So I would deliver materials and all kinds of things. So it was
What
interesting.
were the
how we
biggest
started.
challenges for you guys back then?
trying to find help, and then as we grew, we added on crews, so it was always help.
And
Yeah.
just for roofing contractors, were they employee crews or were they subcontractor crews?
Mostly employee crews. We did run some sub crews throughout the years. We had a couple subs that kind of would, when we were high peak times, but we ran probably 4 or 5 of our own crews
Oh, wow.
As employees, which
as
is,
employees.
I don't know about commercial, but that's pretty unusual in residential.
Yes, very unusual.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in residential,
Yeah.
but commercial,
Commercial, you see it?
you do.
Yeah, you have to hold the talent together and keep the good quality guys.
So how did you guys approach hiring? Like, how did you guys find crews if that was your biggest challenge?
I could tell a funny story. It's kind of embarrassing, but so we got our first. We got a really good foreman, and I think he was just somebody knew him type deal, and
Yeah.
it worked out. And we sent him on we were breaking him off to start his own crew, and we sent him to a job in McAllister, and told him to go to the local whatever
Unemployment or
office.
yeah.
Unemployment office, and told him to hire the first 10 guys that showed up. And he was like, but I only need like 3. And we said, hire the first 10 guys.
You should be lucky to get 2.
And so I mean, we did that. We struggled with that for a long time. I mean, we got some dandies, but
Yeah.
then over the years it just got better. I guess we got more well known and friends of friends, and
Yeah.
How
It's
long
kinda-
before you started feeling like out of the panic mode? And I'm not saying that you were panicked, but those, are we going to make it, and hand to mouth, till you started feeling like, hey, this is going to work. We got a business. And
well, I'm that person that doesn't feel like I'm ever going to fail. So I never
There-
had that.
I like that.
Yeah.
We were going to do whatever it took to make it work. So I guess
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever felt that way.
Okay.
excellent.
Now, back to, because I know the hiring is not just, for commercial roofers, a challenge for a lot of contractors. How did you keep the good employees that you had? Like maybe that foreman you said, did you keep him for a long time? Was
He's
it
still there.
okay?
He's
That's
still
great.
there.
So how do you do that? How did you approach that?
Well, we treat them. That's very important to us, is to treat them right. We, have good benefits, and we just take care of them. I mean, try to figure out what their needs are.
Yeah.
It's hard because in the roofing, they're away from their families. A lot of our jobs
Yeah.
were rural areas. We worked Oklahoma, but we worked the whole state, so they may be gone 5 days a week.
Yeah.
We tried really hard never to make them work on weekends. Family's important to us, so we want, it was important to them. We just tried to know what their needs were and try to meet them. And
That's really good. I think, and I assume you're talking about not just professional needs, but personal needs too.
sure,
Because I think so many times working with employees, you have to really be invested in who they are, not just what they do for you. And that's where people mess up, is they think, oh, well, I provide a good salary and benefits. Well, that's great, but that's not everything, Sometimes it's being able to, be there for the soccer game on the weekend for the kids,
Right.
and making sure that they never miss that. Those little things, those little needs really help people feel that you care about who they are, not just about what they do for you. And
absolutely. I think that's important. That's why I said we kind of see what their needs are, and they're different
Respecting
with
these
every,
people, yeah.
different. And they became part of our team. I mean, like I said, he's still there today, and he's working under a different owner. But I mean,
Yeah.
we've had good success with keeping our key employees.
Were you ever worried about other contractors or roofing contractors stealing away your employees?
Yeah, and they tried.
They tried?
They tried.
And were they successful?
I don't know. I mean, we've done pretty well at keeping our key employees. I'm sure some have left and went other places, but
Right.
our key employees we pretty well kept.
And I think that's something that I always hear from contractors. Like literally, whenever we do marketing for contractors, they're worried about us posting pictures of some of their employees or like
Really?
highlights of some of their employees, because like a competitor's going to see that post and then they're going to want to contact them and hire them away. And that may be true, but
It does happen.
yeah,
It
but
does happen.
my belief is that, man, if you can build a company that people don't want to leave,
Yeah.
then you're going to find people that you're going to hire people that are going to be really great people.
And I think think that's one thing that we did really well. We developed a culture within our organization that I believe people like. I mean, it's proven because we didn't have a lot of turnover in our we don't have a lot of turnover in our labor force really, but especially in our key personnel. Like I said, most of the foremen that I had when I worked there are still there with the new owner.
That's awesome.
And that was important to me. That was part of our deal.
Respect and personal. Let me, because it's come up with a number of my clients over the last 3 or 4 weeks, terminating employees. One of the hardest things owners have to do. Have you ever had to terminate people, and what was your philosophy on that?
Well, I really dislike terminating people. I think if you ever enjoy it, you've got something wrong with you. Even when they deserve it. It's still hard for me. They have families to feed. It's hard. The hardest ones are the ones that just aren't a fit for the position. They work hard, they try hard, they come every day, and they're just not the right fit. And
so, do you keep them around, or do you finally do it? That's exactly what's going on.
I've kept them around too long. I'll be honest.
And that's exactly what's going on too.
I have. I don't like to terminate people, but I've had to terminate those people. At some point you just have to do it, and it's difficult. The ones that deserve it or do something wrong, steal from you or something like that. Even those are hard, but you have to do it, and those are easier, but they're still difficult. That's probably wasn't one of my strengths. I don't like firing people. Nobody does. And I did keep people around longer than I should have, but
what made you, and we'll get off this topic, but it's just so totally germane right now. When you finally decided you had to do it, one of those nice people who just isn't a fit and doesn't have maybe the horsepower to do the job, what finally triggers and you say, I've got to do this?
I just think one day you just had enough, and you know in your mind for weeks or months or years or whatever, and then one day it just triggers it. That for me, that's what we talk about it. My brother and I talk about, we've got it's time, and then one day I'd come down and say I did it, and he'd be like, "What?" Just because something would just trigger it that day, and I just would finally. It'd just be the last straw, I guess. And it wouldn't even be anything major. It'd just be, just knew it was time.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to dwell on that because that's kind of a downer side, but I know that everybody who's been in business any length of time, and if they're good people, has to deal with that issue of firing people. And most everybody, matter of fact, everybody I know, including me, keeps them around too long.
Yep.
And what's it cost the company? I will say, when you postpone it, you're postponing. Let's say you put it off for 90 days. You're delaying by 90 days. You're getting the right person. You're delaying by 90 days. That person finding the correct fit. So it's always tough, but
it's
when you know they got to go, you just finally got to do
it. It's a difficult
for
everybody, I think.
I think something that I want to last thing I guess for this aspect of it, but you talk about culture there at the end. That you were really intentional about that. What does that look like for you? How are you intentional about culture and really making sure that the values you have were implemented into the company?
I think mainly it's just being in the construction industry. There's so many times I hear that the guys would be, they're not looking for solutions. You're going to have problems on it in job sites, and I'd hear fighting between them and nobody looking for an answer, just wanting to fight, point fingers, and that's just something that wasn't acceptable to me because that's not a solution that I was okay with. And I think that, and they are the face of the business. They're out there with the owner. They're out there with it's not me. I'm not the one out in the field. Those guys are the ones out in the field. And they knew that was part of their employment, that they better be professional, handle things professionally. And I think we did it. So, I think they learned from examples. I think that's one of the things that we were really, we treat them well. We wanted them to treat our customers well, that type of thing. And that goes all the way from your people out in the field to your drivers. Now in our retail business, I tell them that's sometimes that's the only person the customer sees outside of the salesman is their driver.
Yep.
And it's so important for all those. They're all salesmen. Everybody in your company is a salesman, whether they want to believe it or not.
Yep.
And the image that they portray is so important to your reputation and your business. I mean, if you have a driver that's just a hard guy to get along with and won't help or whatever,
Really
they
good
don't
point.
want to buy from you. I mean,
Yep.
you don't understand. I mean, so I think that was the culture that we are customer service driven. We treat the customer right. We don't care. We treat everybody right. I mean, we're not gonna, if there's a problem, we're gonna try to look for a solution, not a fight, that type of thing.
And I know because I've talked to you, you can articulate those things. For a lot of people, the culture is just naturally who they are, the boss.
Yeah.
And,
It is.
But I think that is the foundation of it. It's hard to be a culture of something that you're not actually.
Yeah, it's not possible.
But to articulate the things that matter to you and communicate them to your crew is important for most businesses, because reorient, let new people know. But then you have to live it out.
Yeah,
Right.
you have
Yeah.
to. I mean, you can't just say write 5 words down and say these are my values, but you don't actually spend any time, energy, or resources on those values yourself. People are going to notice hey, boss isn't doing this. Why do I need to do it? But I think really what you've really touched on is not just culture, but the intersection of culture and what I call brand. People think of branding as maybe a logo whenever they hear that, but really branding is whatever your customer sees your company as, not just a logo. Yeah, they see your logo, but they see the driver, they see the salesperson. That's the brand, that's the image of your company, and you don't get to define it for your customer. You can do your best by showing up on time, by being professional in your manners, by finding solutions and not complaining, all these different things. But ultimately, your customer has to recognize that. You can't just tell them this is who we are, right? They have to feel it.
They have to feel it. And I think that's, I'm not sure how we actually did it, but that's one of the things, I mean, I'm a big relationship person too. So, I mean, we do a lot of relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, and I wanted those guys to know the owners and to know the people. But I got so many compliments on our crews just because they were professional and they were trying to take care of the job rather than just point fingers and
That's amazing.
cause trouble or.
So how long are you at this company? How long did you stay with this?
Metal roof
Metal
company.
roof.
The metal roofing.
Metal roofing.
17, 18 years.
Oh,
Wow.
really?
Okay. So at 17, 18 years along, maybe before then, you exited. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, we sold.
You sold the company.
Yes.
Talk us through that process of just what got you to that point of okay, we need to sell. What was that decision like?
Well, by that time, I had started running the contracting side, and we had opened the retail side, the metal store.
Okay, well maybe let's back up. What caused you to open up the retail side?
Well, so we got to the point where we wanted control. I'm a control freak a little bit. So I'll be honest. We wanted more control, so we started fabricating our own trims and our own building everything because we were on job sites. We couldn't get the materials we needed and that kind of stuff, and so we started fabricating our own stuff. And so we bought the equipment, and it just kind of grew a little bit more and more. And it got to the point we needed 2 guys to just handle our own stuff.
Yeah.
But we needed them there all the time so we weren't shut down in the field, but it wasn't a 8-hour-a-day job. Right. And so here we had these guys we needed, but yet we didn't have enough for them to do. And so that's when we started trying to sell to other customers and outside sources.
And so were you supplying all of your materials, or almost all, a majority of your materials that you were installing?
The majority of them, yes. We manufactured our roof panels on site, and
not screws and hinges, probably.
we bought out screws, but we stocked those, so we still just went and got them out of the warehouse rather than having to wait on somebody to deliver it to us and stuff like that.
It's so interesting. This is the 4th time that I've heard of a contractor scratching their own itch by supplying themselves with maybe they're making their own materials. They're like, we can do this better, whatever it is, and then saying, you know what? Other people have this itch too. Let's go sell to them. Jeff with Ultimate Cabinets would be one, and we'll have him on in a little bit. But Yeah, it's just so interesting to see that. So what year in the grand scheme of the metal roofing contractors company did you guys start the retail side?
I don't know, we were probably 10 years into it.
10 years.
Maybe.
So,
yes, and I don't know off the top of my head.
Growing the retail side, because that's a little bit different.
Totally different.
So tell us the differences between the two. You're kind of going back into what you started in almost with the supply company, right?
Yes, but I wasn't the financer of that.
Yeah,
so
right,
I learned
exactly.
really quick. I thought I had learned a lot, growing the contracting business, you just bought, it was pretty easy to know when to buy another piece of equipment or to buy something else because you
had
could
the work.
see yourself, you knew it was easy because that piece of equipment's going to make you money.
Right.
Because you were going to put it you're basically selling time in a way because it's how many jobs you can get done in a,
Right.
if you can sell them and you got to get them finished. And so it was really easy. Now, in the retail side, then you get into inventory. It's a whole new ballgame. So
you're doing manufacturing.
You have to have a ton of cash flow in the contracting side to keep growing.
Well, they matched the expense that you had and the cost of labor and materials kind of lined up with the revenue that was going to come in, even though
and
it
you
might
could
be
see
60
it.
days.
It was easy.
Yeah, but now, do I need those panels in stock, or somebody need them today or not?
Yeah,
If you said no, then they're mad at you, and if you said
if you
yes,
don't have
they
it,
didn't
you
take
can't
it.
sell it. But then
Right.
if you can't stock everything. So it's been a really challenge. And, it's taken us, and I wouldn't say we still know exactly. We're a lot better today than we were, but, it's hard to know what people are going to, keeping your inventory is a hard deal for us.
I just want to mention, in that book that I handed you, The Profit Problem, that we talk about every time because I do shameless plugs on it, that I wrote. I talk about inventory, and a lot of contractors, they go, oh, she's talking about manufacturing, I don't have inventory. But you go look in their shop, you go look in their trucks, you go look at the job sites, and they got $250,000 worth of stuff out there, and they don't have any of it on their books, and they don't even know where it is. And they go buy another part that they've already got because they didn't realize they had one sitting under that box. Inventory is a monster, even if you're not.
That's so true.
Even if you're not retail or sales.
Yeah, because it's left over from another job, so it's already expensed out. So
Right.
you don't have it on your books, just like you said.
Right.
So you can't. You're not tracking it.
But you've understated your profit because you expensed it against that last job, but you didn't use it.
Right.
It's something you still own, so you made more. It goes the other way too. You didn't expense something that you wrote before, so you used some stuff that was in the truck. Hey, we got all those fittings, so I did real well on this job. Say, no, you didn't.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, and so they don't really know where they stand.
Well, and you don't even think you have inventory as a contractor. As a contracting side of it, I would, if you'd asked me if I had inventory, I'd have said no. Even though, like you just said, you do. You just don't even realize.
We have a contractor who was on. He won't care because he mentioned it. Michael Barnett. He did a podcast here.
Yeah,
4 or
just
5
released
episodes ago. But when I first met him, we walked out in his 6,000 square foot warehouse, and it was floor to ceiling. And I said, "You got any inventory?" He goes, "No." And I said, "What do you think that?" And he was grinning because he knew what. But probably 150,000 easily, and not counting his 10 trucks, which were piled to the gills with, GFIs that cost $30 a piece. Well, you got 20 of them. Ooh. That's a lot of money.
But like you said, half the time you don't even know what you have.
Yeah, and then you go buy more GFIs. Right. So anyway, that's a great lesson. I'm glad you brought up.
You had mentioned the difficulty with financing the manufacturing side. Maybe kind of walk us through the steps that you guys went through to finance that.
Or what you meant by that first, and then what you...
Sure.
Well, like I said, in the contracting side, it was pretty easy to know when to take that next step because that piece of equipment was just going to buy. You could see that it was going to make you money immediately. Where the retail side, you just got to keep so much inventory. You've got to. It's just really difficult to know when to do some of those, or when to put more inventory on the floor and that type of thing. How did we finance it? The contracting side financed it for several years.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, it financed it, and of course we took a hit over there and didn't realize what was going on. It just kind of happened, I guess. But And after we sold it, I think it became even more clear because when we sold it, the metal store was starting to do well, and that was part of it.
Who was your first customer other than yourself on the retail side? A competitor?
Say that again?
So like on the retail side where you're selling the supplies, who was your first customer other than your own business?
No, it wasn't. It was just others. We were in such a niche market that we didn't have very many competitors, to be honest with you. There was only 2 or 3 people who did what we did in the state. And so there was a lot of other roofing contractors that were building the fast food chains. You see metal metal on and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of those kind of guys. Flat roofers, we do a lot of flat trim for them. They still have gutters, downspouts. So that's the kind of things we build. And
Gotcha.
And so we do a lot of those. So mainly, but not a lot of competitors.
So how did you find those people? How did you find your customers for the retail side?
Good question. I mean, we just, we started out, you'll think this is crazy too. And this kind of started out really slow. We were doing it with metal roof contractors, and we really didn't, I can't remember what year that we actually built a building that looked like a retail building that people can come to. We have a counter. I mean, we were kind of doing it out of the warehouse for a few years. And so we advertise. I mean, we advertise. In the beginning, it was just probably word of mouth and just,
Sure.
But when we really set up, we did a direct mail piece, to be honest with you. We did we just sent it out to everybody that we kind of knew and told them we were there. And then we did some open houses, and now we're on the radio.
I saw you on the football game. I texted you.
We're on TV.
You football game, you were a commercial.
Yeah, and we do a lot of radio.
What's the name of the company now, the retail side?
The metal store.
The metal store.
Yeah.
Very nice. And where you guys in Edmond or in Oklahoma City?
We are in far north Edmond on Waterloo.
Okay, very cool. So how do you guys, what is your focus as far as finding customers now? You guys are advertising. What's your strategy with that right now?
Well, we have we have salespeople too, and so he actually did come from a competitor, so he brought a lot of business with him, and then we had another guy that's come over from another. So we got a lot of business that way. So, and that's still important as our salespeople, but advertising, word of mouth, a lot of it's just people knowing we're there. I mean, I think
the brand awareness. Mm-hmm. That's why you guys are doing some of the radio, some of the other stuff.
Right, just people to know we're there.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, at what point did you realize that the metal store was the way to go, and you didn't want to do the contractor side anymore? You're going to sell.
Well, I was at a point that I wanted to do something different. My brother was not, so it kind of worked itself out in that he was running the retail side. I was doing the contracting side, so it was easy. I knew that I was going to want to get out before he did, and so I just kind of had, in my own mind, set this up for a long time. We separated the companies, really separated the books.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure that's a whole process in itself, right?
It is. But I kind of did it from the beginning, and so it wasn't that hard, because I knew at some point that was always in the back of my mind, I guess.
I have to comment on this. What I do is building a business to exit. We have another guy, Larry Hughes, on in another episode. Yeah. Has he been on yet?
By the time you're listening to this, he has already published. Just so listeners know, we are, real quick, listeners, we are recording probably 3 months before this actually publishes. So that's why we're referencing other podcasts.
We don't know who the President of the United States is, and they've had an election. So that'll kind of give you the date. So, but the point that Larry makes, which is just brilliant, is he said, you are going to exit your business. Period. You're going to. Now, how do you want to do that?
Yeah,
you want to go out and go broke? You want to die at your desk? Do you want to maybe sell it and get something from it? So that's another key point, and thank you for bringing it up. You kind of always planned it, and we can go into more details of what it takes to plan to exit if we get to that point. But you planned it. You kind of separated things. He's running one, you're running the other, so it's separable. It's not like it's all jumbled together. You don't have any books. You don't know who does what.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to say, well, let's sell off this part. So anyway, thank you for bringing that up. That's a really key point.
Would you consider your intent to exit something that was business savvy or intellect, or would you consider it more so your personality of you get tired of things and want to do new things? Kind of like you got an education as a teacher, but then you said, this isn't for me, and you went to secretary, then you grew into operations manager because you knew you weren't going to do that. In the same way that you didn't know that you knew you weren't going to be a secretary forever, did you know that you weren't going to do this forever from the beginning?
Yes, I think so.
Gotcha.
Our business kind of would go, and I assume all businesses do this, but you go in your growth phase, and then you kind of plateau and peak out, and then you hit another growth. You got to do something different.
Yeah, if you intend to.
You got to do something. You kind of get to the point where you're doing the maximum you can do with the people you have. And so if you want to grow, you've got to add something. You've got to do something different. And we had gone through 2 or 3 of those, I think, and we were at that another plateau. And I knew for us to take that next step, it was going to be a lot. We were going to have to get into some different, what am I trying to say? Different products. Yeah. Still roofing related, but
just different industries, different segments.
We're going to have to diversify some of that because our little niche market is still doing well. But I mean, we just knew we were going to have to get into some other things. And I don't know that I had the passion anymore. I knew I did not think that I was the person to take it to that next level anymore.
Bringing up another great point I got to hit on is that an entrepreneur who goes from startup is a lot of times not the same person who goes through the growth phase, which is seldom the same person who manages well when you've flattened out. It's possible, but you just described, you didn't say you were bored with it, but it's kind of coming
really
across.
Bored, but I knew I wasn't that person. I knew it was
the challenge wasn't there. It wasn't fun, exciting.
Exactly.
And so you took action and said, then I'm not doing that anymore.
And I knew that it needed to grow. We had to do a lot of, and he did. He got a whole new product line and started.
He
doing
being
a
your
lot
brother?
He being the guy that bought the.
Oh, okay. The guy who bought the.
Yeah, company. That bought the company. I mean, he actually put in a new product, and I knew that's where it needed to go. I just didn't want to do it. There was a lot of learning of that new process, and I just was at a point in my life I didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't I knew I wasn't the person to take it to the next level.
Right.
So maybe walk us through how you actually exited. How did you actually sell? Well,
it was important to me that everything was intact. I had, like I told you early on, the employees that we had the whole time. They're the ones that got us there, and I wasn't going to just go sell to anybody that could dismantle the corporation or get rid of them or whatever. So it was very, very important to me that everything kept going the way it was, or within reason. I mean, you can't, but to try to keep everything in place, and so that my employees wouldn't lose their job. And so I found a guy that I thought would be a perfect fit, and
How did you find him?
I knew him, and it just.
Okay.
I threw it out one day. He actually was an engineer, and
was he working for you? Was he working at a different company?
He was working as an engineer, designing bridges, and he had the entrepreneur spirit. I saw it. I knew he did.
You could recognize.
I knew that he wasn't going to be where he wasn't a typical engineer by any means, and I just knew that wasn't. And we just happened to be having a drink one day, and I threw it out, and he bit. So it was kind of a.
So that's really interesting. How did you know him? Like, because I feel like you're making, and maybe it was just that easy, but I feel like it's not that easy to find somebody who has the same cultural fit, the same values, who has the money to maybe do it, or the drive to do it, to just already know that person, and they don't work for you already.
Well, maybe I'm just lucky.
Yeah. Well,
maybe you just were looking all the time.
I was, because I told you I had that in the back
Mm.
of my mind for years. So I didn't have to leave right then. So it wasn't like I was dying. I wasn't really looking for. I was always looking for the person, but I don't think it was like I was actively
not intentional, but just
pursuing.
kind of.
I mean, it wasn't like I was putting out in the market that we were for sale or anything.
So you didn't even use a business broker. Mm-mm. You just kind of did it all yourself. Okay. Good.
Well, I had some help from a CPA and my attorney and that type of thing.
Without telling any numbers if we don't have to, but just so people understand briefly, Did you get a bunch of money? Did you finance it? Did you get a share of the profit? How did the sale work?
We financed it.
And then he paid you out of profits a certain amount, percentage of profits annually till it was paid off, or?
He's still paying me, yeah.
Still
Okay.
But
paying.
I didn't want a big lump sum just for tax reasons and stuff. So
I mean,
it
you
made
were happy
sense.
with, you made money on it, felt good
Sure.
about it. Okay. You said, sure. Sure, we made money. You hear that? Sure, we made.
Well,
A lot of
I
people
don't.
don't.
Think you're gonna
but-
say, well, I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
I'm- There's another thing, and I know you're going to talk about it because I'm going to ask you later on when we get to the ASA, but you said something really important in passing. You said, I didn't have to sell.
right.
Man, that's a big deal. You didn't have to.
What does that mean to you? Like just
Well, like
define
I
that.
said, in the back of my mind, I think I knew I was ready to go do something else. I had the challenge just wasn't there. I wasn't motivated like I was in the beginning. I'm a hands-on person. I mean, there's two theories, I guess, and you can hire other people and you can kind of sit back and let them do it. And I'm not that person. My personality is that if my name's on the door, my reputation's on the line, I'm gonna be right in there in the middle of it. Which, I don't know which one's right, which one's wrong. For me, that one's right because that's who I am. It would be hard for me to. So I was working a lot. I put in a lot of hours. I'm not that person. I mean, I had to be right in the middle of it. So I wanted out. Where a lot of people, they just want to slowly, get other people to take their position, but they stay involved, or they stay owners, but they hire managers and stuff. And that really wasn't me. I had my thumb on the pulse, and that's where I wanted.
But the key point is that you didn't have to get out because of financial difficulty or health issues or something.
No, we were doing
You
good.
got out when the time was right, if we can do it under my terms,
Right.
which is a big,
That's right.
big deal.
And my terms were to keep the people in place.
Yeah. And that will go to planning, which is what I said we'll talk about when we get to the ASA. I know you're really passionate about that.
And honestly, I don't know if I'd have put it out for sale, maybe I would have made more. But I'm not motivated.
I heard
Not totally motivated by money.
I heard a really good analogy of this from a guy named Hank, who's a business broker, and so there's 3 dials. You've got the value of your business, the price that you would sell it for. You've got the time frame that you'd like to sell it in, and then you've got your terms. Like, I want someone who is going to keep our managers, or I want someone
Right.
who's whatever it is. And you can twist those dials, but you can only twist 2 of them, and the other one will twist with it. So if you really want to sell in 2 weeks and you want it to be on your terms, you can do
value.
it, but the value is not going to be very high.
Good point.
But if you want to sell for a certain price and you want it to be in certain terms, well, you can't control the time on that. It may take you 5 years, right?
That's a
And
good
so
point.
it's a really interesting analogy,
That is
but you can't control everything. And I think what was nice for you with those dials, you did have your own terms, and you did have, I don't know about price situation, but it sounds like for a long time you wanted to sell, but you had to wait for the right opportunity.
right.
Right.
And so it sounds like you had to wait on that time dial a little bit, but it ended up working out.
Yeah, but I wasn't just, I knew someday I'd want to sell. It wasn't like I had it. I didn't have a time frame. I wasn't adamant I wanted to sell by this amount. I mean,
Yeah.
so the right guy came along, and then he actually worked for us for a year as a project manager, because he really didn't know a lot about the business, and so the employees didn't know that we had the deal. He went in and he kind of got, he knew he was going to be taken over, so I mean, he made relationships with the employees and did all that kind of stuff, and
That's really unique.
A well-crafted
Yeah.
transition.
and it worked. It really worked pretty well. And so when we actually made the transition, everybody was already acclimated with him. It's almost kind of like I had hired him to run the organization, or to do. But I mean, I don't know that no one saw it that way. So I mean, but they liked him. He went in and did what he needed to do to get the. So it was an easy transition. I'm just lucky, I think.
Yeah. So I'm
The harder
curious.
you work, the luckier you get, right?
true.
The more planning you do, the luckier
It sounds
you
like you're still connected through relationship to the company. Maybe you're not in the operations, right? But how are things going now since you've left? Has it grown? Has it had that new spark of like innovation maybe?
Yeah, he actually, like I said, he brought on a new product line. They do wall panels, and all the employees. I mean, he's got the same employees. He got some new ones. He's brought in some new people, and they're doing
And what's the name of the
well.
company? OKC Metal Roof?
Metal Roof Contractors.
Metal Roof
We
Contractors.
just name our business exactly
Yeah,
what
well,
we do.
Hey, what a great idea.
It's a really
People
good
can see the
marketing.
name and
We only do
understand.
metal roofing, so
Yeah.
it's Metal Roof Contractors, and he kept the name, and we're still in the same building. He rents from our, so he's still offices in our building, and
Okay.
so we're all
Still buys from the metal store?
still buys from the
Yeah.
metal
There you
Is
go.
store.
is that part of the contract?
No, actually,
He's
it's
just
not.
doing it because he gets the
He
best
doesn't
service
have
and
to. Yeah, we got to take care of him. So.
Yeah.
best value.
Okay, so what is that transition like for you as a business owner stepping out of, I know you're still basically running two businesses, but your brother's running the metal store,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not involved in the daily operations of the metal store at
Okay.
all. I don't even.
But you
know.
are a part owner?
I'm a part owner, and
Okay.
I do payroll and some
Okay.
keep my pulse or my hand in the accounting a little bit,
Gotcha.
but not on a daily basis.
What is that like for you? What was it like for you to transition out of that? I'm assuming you had all this time back after selling. Is that right or no?
Yeah, I was. I was also always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do the American Subcontractors deal. I had been a member of ASA from day one, and it helped me in my business so much. So
Okay.
So
What made you join that in the first place, if you remember?
I think my financial guy said this is something you need to do.
Okay.
He was involved, and he got me involved, and that's where I started. Oh, I learned so much there from them, and so I wanted to. It's just something I felt important. I thought was important. I wanted to help other companies do well, I guess.
Yeah.
So it just happened, and again, it was just a timing thing. That was the executive director. She left probably. I had sold. So after I sold the company, I did stay on
As a consultant.
for I think a year or close
Okay.
to a year, maybe 10 months to a year.
All right.
I just had an agreement I'd stay on as long as he needed me, but
Sure.
not forever. So we didn't really have. But so he was doing fine, and it came up. They had an interim executive director who was out of Texas, who actually started the organization years ago, and so I was working with her to help her, and kind of was the feet on the ground in Oklahoma.
Even while you were at Metal Roofing Contractors.
Yes.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
then knowing that I would probably take that position once I was.
And what year was this?
I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago. Okay. And that's whenever you took over full time as executive director?
I think this is my 4th year.
Okay. And so those are very different operationally. Like,
Oh yeah.
because
Totally
now you're
different.
planning like meetings and networking events and speakers and, you know,
And it's kind of a part-time deal.
Oh, yeah.
It's more, I work out of my house. I wanted the freedom. I wanted
Yeah.
to be able to do. So it's a lot.
Did you-
But I wanted something to do. I wasn't ready to just quit and stay at home.
yeah. Do you ever struggle? Did you struggle at all with the lack of busyness at all? Like,
No.
I don't know. I have this fear of I'm really busy right now and eventually I will slow down. And I have a fear that like my mind will just be looking for things to do all the time.
No, I'm
No,
not that person.
not for you? Okay.
I could have walked away and not. I need something to do. So I think it's good that I am doing that, but I don't. I was done. I was finished and I was done, and I don't miss. I miss some of the people, but I still see them, so I don't really miss
Sure.
them. I don't even miss that. So I don't miss it. I like the game. I like the game.
A game of business.
The competitiveness. I'm a very competitive person, and so I will say I miss that a little bit. I kind of get that a little bit by dealing with other subcontractors. Maybe I can be, so I'm still a little in the game. I still have a lot of relationships. A lot of with GCs and architects and stuff. Well, they can be a part of our organization. We work. They're partners with us, so. I think the ASA job keeps me in the game, if that
Gotcha.
a little bit. Not the bidding game and not that part of the game. I do miss a little of that, but not really.
Gotcha.
I was ready. I think if you're ready to be done, you're done.
Yeah.
I was ready.
So tell us about ASA OK. What is ASA OK? I know you kind of said it at the beginning, but remind us. American Subcontractor Association of Oklahoma. What do you guys do?
So what we do is we to promote. We try to make companies better business people. We try to. We're a three-legged stool. We have education, we have networking, and we have advocacy.
Okay.
And so we provide a lot of education. When I first got in there, I didn't even know what I didn't know. I mean, you don't as a young business owner. There's a lot of things you don't even know. I mean, you don't understand like contract. One of the things that I learned, I was signing when we first started our business. We were kind of a prime contractor, and so our contracts were with the owner. But the market changed over time, and we started having to go through general contractors, and so now our contracts was with them. And I signed every contract they sent to me. Because I thought, I don't want to start on an adversarial. I don't want to start off adversarial. Yeah. I don't want to start like that. I don't want to cause problems up front. I don't want to cause an argument. Well, I learned real quick that was not a smart decision.
They don't mind starting an argument.
But
like, we'll pay you someday if we want to.
Exactly, and I learned real quick. But I had a general contractor tell me he said if you sign our contract, we know you're not very sophisticated sub. And I mean that just blew my mind. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, because he said we know that this was written, by our attorneys, and it's all lopsided our way. And if you just sign it and don't question anything, then he said, you're not. We that's how we kind of decided.
That
what
is
kind
a
of
really
subcontractor
worthwhile takeaway from here. We do have Eric Daffron on, whom you introduced me to.
Yep.
He did an episode like the third or fourth one. But that fear of having to go through a contract, start adversarial, and what you just said the generals say, if you don't get anything else out of this, a lot of contractors that can change their lives.
Yeah, and it makes sense once you think about it. But I learned what to look for, and so that was some of the things that we do. I mean, indemnification's a big deal, and paid if paid, and all those contract clauses that are in there. You know what to look for, and I didn't know any of that. So I was, I learned a lot of that. The bonding aspects, there's different bond rates out there. And you can get, what I didn't even know what EMR was, which is how they decide what your bond rate's going to be. Mm-hmm. Those things
What is EMR?
I know what it is from
but
this.
Not the acronym.
I don't know what it even stands for, but it's your rating. It's your modification rating based on your safety, your experience.
Experience modification rate.
Yeah, experience modification.
It's like for.
So and so it lowers your bond rate if you have a good EMR, and that's based on your safety and how many accidents you've had and different things like that. And I didn't even know that kind of stuff. And so education was huge for me. Like I said,
so that's the kind of thing. ASA will have a workshop on that kind of thing.
We have
on all those kinds of things.
Yeah, we have a lunch meeting every month that speaks about something. It's pretty general, and then we have some study groups where we get in a lot of contract clauses where we have attorneys come in and tell you what to look for. Help you understand indemnification. A lot of people don't even know what that is or how.
Right.
I mean, there was. When I first started, and we got a law passed, there was clauses in the contract that would say, if I'm a roofer, and if the concrete guy, has an accident, everybody that's on the job is going to participate in the cost. I might not even have men at the job, but they're still going to. I mean, it's crazy. Some of and so. ASA was responsible for getting that changed by law.
So you guys do some lobbying as well.
So we do a lot of work at the Capitol.
That's the advocacy.
Yep.
We do a lot of work at the Capitol. We recently, for some reason in the contracting business, as you guys know, they like to hold our retainage. They like to hold 10%. It used to be 10%, and then ASA was responsible for getting it to 5% retainage, and that's on public
that's
jobs.
A law?
Huh?
Oh, on public laws.
On public.
Okay.
On public. And then last November, we were able to get that down to 2.5% once you're 50% complete. That's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
if you got $1 million, $2 million job,
Yeah.
2.5% is a lot of money.
Yeah,
And
those
they'll hold
retainage
it.
could be out there
They
for a
can
year
hold
and a
it for
half.
a year, 2 years, and it's wrong, but it's the way it works. And I mean, if we can keep lowering it, it helps. I mean, we've done a lot of things like that. We got 5% preference on out-of-state work. So, like if you're on the border, and all the surrounding states have that.
Yeah.
So we got to go into their state. You know, if they beat us, they have a 5% preference. We didn't have that in
Meaning they
Oklahoma.
could bid 5% more and still get the job.
Right. Now we have that in Oklahoma. So
That's good.
ASA was responsible for those bills, and I mean,
That's great. So we're talking about the Oklahoma chapter. Is that what you'd call it, chapters?
Yes.
Okay, so the Oklahoma chapter right now, but there are chapters in every state? Or
a
almost?
lot of states. Not every state has one, but I think there's, I don't know, 16, 17, so not every
16 or
state,
17,
I
okay.
think.
So
Maybe 20, I don't know.
So this is something that people can, because we have listeners that aren't in Oklahoma, this is something that they can join
Sure.
in any place, and they
Yeah.
would get the same.
So
same
it
benefits.
costs a contractor basically how much a month?
$100, $108.
So $108 you get
It's a
a
business
college
expense.
education.
Oh, you do. It's
More than a college
that
education.
and the networking. I mean, the networking with outside, like we have an event tonight where we're going to have 3 GCs that are going to be at a bar, basically, a restaurant, and we divide up in 3 groups, and we can go. I mean,
Meet the subcontractors and meet the GCs.
They bring their estimators, they bring their project managers, they bring those, and you know, you might talk to an estimator for years and feel like you know the person. I mean, you know their family and everything else, but you've never even met them face to face.
What's the benefit to the generals in doing this?
Just meeting new subs that they can have that work on their projects.
Are subs important to general?
Absolutely.
I mean, we have generals listening also, but subs a lot of times kind of look at the general as kind of the gatekeeper and all that.
Yeah.
But they need to realize that good subs this is my opinion, you correct me, make a general.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
I
the
think
good
and
subs
the
that
good
have
subs know that. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of your subs, I mean, that's why, they're willing to partner with us to work together because we need each other. I mean, that
Well,
building don't
which
get
brings
built
us-
one without the other.
Maybe it was before we got on, but we were talking about price. We were talking about bid jobs. But yes, it's a bid, and you think it's got to be the low price wins, but it is not. It is not just about price, because if you don't show up for the job, then it doesn't matter what the price was. The generals know that it's about price, but they're not going to give the job to somebody who's not going to show up.
Or
Right,
just be
and
a headache in general.
there's a competitive bid law, so you have to,
Yeah.
you got to remain under, the legalities of it. But I have been awarded more than several jobs that I was not low bidder on. It's best
Now,
bid.
the bid law though pertains to states. I mean, private.
Public.
Public.
Now,
A
private's
private can
totally
bid.
different. Yeah, they can take whoever
Well, and there's
they
a lot of
want.
private out there
Absolutely.
too.
So, but even on a public bid job, you don't always have to be
Right.
the lowest one.
Yeah.
They have to have a
But-
reason.
Yeah, they have to have a reason, but I mean, it's the best bid, and I mean, there's a lot of times
Yeah.
that I mean, you can prove that you are the best bid.
And ASA OK is more for the commercial side.
That
of
is correct.
things,
We're-
not for the residential.
That is correct.
What about like industrial, like factories, and maybe that's still commercial,
Yeah, I
like
think
pipelines and stuff like that. Like, is that still part of ASA?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha. And then if someone is a residential contractor, do you know of any other associations that you would recommend to them? Or if not, that's okay.
I really don't. I don't know the residential. I don't know.
Not in that space. Okay.
Residential contracting is a lot of the Wild West because
It's
it's just
a lot
individuals talking to
different.
individuals, and
Yep.
It's really a lot.
it's a little
different
more
than
formal with
commercial.
the
It's a lot
commercial,
different.
whatever.
It's
So
two
what?
different markets.
Because you spend so much time with contractors and you've been one yourself, you know what it's like. I'd love to get just an idea of the common mistakes that you see, and I would love to even just go from the GC side and the sub side if you're okay with that. But subcontractors, what are the most common mistakes that you see them make? And it can be big areas, you can be very granular, whatever you want.
I'm a sports analogist, so I'm gonna go with
Perfect.
a sports analogy here. But they play defense instead of offense.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is it is so important, in my opinion, and that's where I see a lot of subs that do this, or you've got to have a game plan. You need to sit down every year and do a budget and have a strategic plan, and you need to review it throughout the year so that you're always on offense. Because what happens if you don't, you just start reacting. You just, the market changes, so you hire 2 more people, or, something happens, so you go buy a truck, or you react to situations. You have an ice storm, and so all of a sudden you get a windfall of
buy $100,000 truck.
Exactly, and you can't not. I can see it. I think that's what a lot of people do. They don't. I mean, Martin is always lecturing us, I guess, if you will, on knowing your break even. But he's right. I mean, if you don't know what your costs are, you don't know what your break even is, you'll just start reacting. You just start playing defense. You just start reacting to problems, and you don't really. You just can't. You can't make a good decision. There's no way, if you're just reacting to problems, that you're making good decisions. So I feel like that a lot of people don't do budgets every year. They don't have a plan every year, and they don't review those plans. I mean, your game plans can change. Something changes in the market, you have to change your game plan sometimes. But I feel like if you stay on offense and you stay. And the other thing it does is it gets everybody your team on the same page, because if my expectations are one thing and my brother's is another and our key employees is another, you're going to have problems. So, but if you're meeting, I think you should do it quarterly. We're not real good about doing it. We probably do it twice a year, but to sit down and just review, make sure you're on the same page.
Yep.
You're not then just reacting to different things that come up throughout the year, because they do. I mean, and they're going to come up, but you kind of are all, your whole big plan, your whole strategic plan is kind of, everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you,
So
you said everybody, how deep down in your company, how far down do people know the numbers? Okay, so not just you and your brother, but your key employees, they know we're going to make this money. People, a lot of times I hear people say, I don't want everybody to know how much money I make, because anyway, how far down do people?
We have an operations manager, we have a sales manager, and a shop, what do you call it, foreman or whatever.
Foreman.
And they know numbers. Sales target.
Shop guy doesn't so much, but the other 2 do.
But you don't have a huge objection or do you?
No, I'd like to bring you in a little bit more, to be honest.
I've got to pass this on to you, because I'd like you to get The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. Have you read that?
I haven't.
A Stake in the Outcome and A Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. I won't spend a whole lot of time describing who he is. He is my hero CEO. And I got to tell you, you sound just like him. Okay?
Well, thank you.
Seriously. And one of his things is he says, it's just worth reading. He's in Springfield, Missouri. His teams, it's a great story. He's just brilliant what he's done. But his teams all get together and decide whether or not they're going to buy a new lathe. They remanufacture engines is one of the things they do. And the teams get together and they do cost accounting and decide, and then they make a decision. We want to buy a new lathe. We don't need it. Okay,
We
and
do the exact same thing.
there you go.
We do.
And so they understand, and he said they have things that they aim for every quarter, and it might be getting accounts receivable down. And he said this is the most remarkable thing in the world when you see a guy out sweeping the shop, a janitor, haranguing a salesman walking by and said, we got the receivables down to, they're at 86 days, and you need to get them down to 60 days. He said, a janitor. And he also said, I cannot bear to become extremely wealthy and sell this company out. It's a great story of what happened. And have all these people help me build it, be without a job. He said, what I want is everybody who works for me to be able to afford a house and to be able to have a family. And so he's one of these guys who really has combined it without, it's your right if you have a business to sell it and dismember it and do all those things. That's your right. But he didn't want to do that. And I'm hearing all the same things from you.
That's exactly how I was.
And you called it a game and have called it a game, and that's the name of his book, The Great Game of Business. So anyway, it's really awesome.
I'll have to read that.
Okay, so you see this, very reactionary mindset in a lot of subcontractors. They're playing defense instead of offense. What are some other things that you see common mistakes? Even, you kind of mentioned legal earlier with like contracts. and not knowing those things and just signing away.
Yeah, just signing contracts they shouldn't be signing, which, like I said, I did as well.
Sure.
I learned that lesson. Not following up on bids, just, not developing relationships with these, I bid that job. Well, did you get it? I don't know. I don't know. Well, who got it? I don't know.
Yeah, what they get it for?
I mean, yeah, what they...
You can't find that out?
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Dude, Tami, it's just so awesome everything you're saying. I've got a guy contractor who needs some work over the winter. I mean, we have a target. We want this amount of jobs over the winter, which is 5. And I said, well, how's it going? How many bids do you have out? 35. He's got 35 bids out. Have you talked to him? Well, I haven't really called him back. I don't want to bug him. I said, well, then don't bug him. Call him back in a way that's, are you kidding me? They do all the work. They get the leads. They go out and visit with the people. They come back and they put together a bid or draw a plan, bid, send it out, and don't call them.
Yeah,
just amazing.
But back to my ASA, I'll do a plug here. That if you come to these events and you meet these people, you become friends with them. It's a lot easier to call them back.
Right.
It's a lot easier to call somebody that you've met, you've had a drink with, whatever. Because now you're not bugging them, you're their buddy, and it's so much easier. So the relationship building is huge. You've got to know your customer. You've got to know these GCs you're working for. That's why it's important to come to these events and know these people. But so many people don't. They just throw a bid out there, and if it sticks, they'll get one out of they'll get one every now and then, but they could increase that by tenfold if they'll just call and find out or develop a relationship with the guy to find out what their needs are. Because a lot of times you can find out what the needs are before the bid and have an advantage too. So if you know these people and you can call, there's a lot of things you can find out before a bid that maybe everybody don't know. I know it's all supposed to be there in the specifications, but sometimes there's stuff that's just not there that you can figure out what your advantage is
competitive
legally.
Advantage.
I mean, I'm not trying to go, but there are competitive advantages, and if the more you know about that project up front, early on, the more you can figure out what your advantage is. And if you don't know those people, they don't call you. If you know them and you've got relationships, they'll call you. I mean, architects used to call us and ask us for advice. How do we design this? How do we do this? That's part of what our job is to educate them as well. And if they're calling you, then you know about that project. I mean, you just have a better chance of getting it. And you've got to follow up. I mean, that's sales in my opinion. I mean, you may be, even if you're in the bid market, you still have to sell. You have to know those people. You have to get out there. You can't just throw out bids and hope you're going to, you'll get one every now and then, but it's not the way to do it.
A specific question, because we talk about the 4 areas: guiding, getting, doing, and administering the business. So guiding is leadership, culture, all the things you've talked about. Getting is marketing and sales. Doing is being a contractor and getting the roof on or getting the pipe in the ground. Administration is everything else. If you had to take a guess, where would you say contractors are generally the weakest? Leadership, marketing and sales, doing, and administration.
I'd say the best are probably, they all know how to do it, because a lot of these guys come from another company where they worked, and so they learned it, so they're good at doing it. It varies. I mean, probably getting is there. Well, I don't know. And the follow up and getting paid is, a lot of them don't do that as well. So I guess.
Well, and keeping your insurance in line and
right.
Keeping your
what
HR.
About the books?
Yeah, the books and account. I mean, that I'm a little, in my experience, with all sorts of businesses, the administration part is just generally missing. I have to make a comment that you said you kind of have an accounting background, not specifically, but
I do.
Really successful people either have accounting. We just had a guy on last episode, and that's what he's talking about, is accounting. You don't have to be an accountant, but you have to, somebody does.
Well, and you have
it's
to
not
understand,
okay just to look at bank statements.
Yeah, and you need to know how to read a financial statement, and that's again some of the things we have at ASA that we teach is to do some of that kind of stuff. So.
You made another comment earlier that you would have gotten an entrepreneurial degree, and I don't want to knock universities, but I went and got an MBA, and I'm friends with some of the professors, and I kind of laugh because, and for listeners, you don't need an MBA to succeed, and an MBA will not guarantee that you succeed, so you do the math. You don't have to have an MBA. But they teach things, and I laugh with them because I said I've dealt with over 300 companies, and there's not a word in any class that I heard in 54 graduate student hours that has direct application to anybody that I deal with. Statistics, economics, microeconomics, supply chain management, MIS. You don't need that stuff. And so I always wonder what they would teach in an entrepreneurial
I
course.
don't know either. I just know they have that degree now, and I think it would be, and I don't know if it's...
Well, you
worth
could teach it.
I don't know about that either.
Well, we just went through the evolution from nothing to one company to selling that company to another company to finding a niche to selling that company to being executive director. I mean, it's all the things that you had to learn when you went along. Those are the things. Well, that's what you're doing right now is you're imparting that education. That's what you do at ASA.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a lot of teachers through the years that have helped me. So, yeah, I mean, and ASA is one of them.
I think that's a really good point also that you're saying is, ASA is really helping with the networking and all those things. But for you said you had a lot of teachers, and I think for a lot of contractors, sometimes they can be very stubborn, maybe, and they don't want to seek outside help. And ASA is something that they can find a lot of that help from in a really natural way, it sounds like.
That's a good point. That's
And
a very
direct
good way.
application, direct
It is.
application to them.
Yeah.
Well, and we have attorneys. Martin's a member, so we have business consultants. We have accountants. We have bankers.
Insurance guys.
Insurance guys. I mean, so you have a lot of people that, and again, you become friends with them. That's how I got, that happened through ASA. Lucky. I mean, then later I learned, if you're going to start a business, you need to have your CPAs and your banker and your lawyer on speed dial. Well, I did all those things again by luck because of ASA. I met those people and they became my friends. And so when I have a problem, I know who to call, and it's easy to take care of. And we did. That's. During the this pandemic and stuff, so we started a weekly phone call. I think you've been on a couple, but we had an attorney on there. Yeah. We've had a banker on there.
Some kind of high-powered attorneys too.
I know. We have our safety consultants on there, and it was just a hour-long call with how to, different things that arise from COVID, from how to, the rules on the FFCRA or whatever that thing is, where they reimburse you if your employees are off, the Family Leave Act. I mean, all that stuff was new. So, I mean, a lot of people, I don't know where they'd get that information. How to apply for the PPP loans. We got a lot of people, the PPP loans. I know you've done it, the EIDL.
Right.
I mean, we had people, and then now, we haven't been meeting now because nothing's happened in the legislative, but I mean, when we start doing the forgiveness, you get your banker on there to kind of help you through the process.
Yeah.
So it's been so,
there's
so much value.
So much stuff, and the people listening, you can't be good at all those things, period.
No.
It's not possible.
Why
But to get help, and then also, some people, to Khalil's point, some people kind of think I'm the boss, and if I can't do it myself, I'm not really a man or a woman.
I'm a control freak, but I don't want to know about taxes and all that kind of stuff. Insurance.
That's fantastic.
I don't want anything to do with that. I don't like it. But I want somebody I trust and know that I need to know enough about it to know they're not taking advantage of me.
And that's important because, even if you are stubborn and you don't worry about insurance, or you don't worry about, talking to a banker or whatever it is that you actually should be doing, that doesn't mean that those things aren't affecting you just because you're not spending time on them. Just like if you're not intentional about your values inside of your business and the culture, it doesn't mean that the culture's not there. No, there's a culture there, and there's a brand there. There's all these different things.
Sure.
Same thing is happening. You might be failing at your taxes. You might be failing at your contracts. You might be failing at all these things because you're not spending time on them. And it's okay if you don't know it. You just need to spend time on it with somebody else. Right. And you're going to find those opportunities with ASA OK, I think. So
yeah, there's a lot of good mentors in that group for sure. Teachers.
Why are contractors not all? I mean, this may be a stupid question, but why isn't everybody in that for $108 a month of everything?
You know what they tell me, which just makes me crazy, and this is probably a whole new podcast, but I don't have the time.
Because they're doing all those things that they shouldn't do.
I just want to say, you don't.
How is it ever going to change?
It's hard for me when they say, and you can't get through to them till they finally realize that, you spend that couple hours a week on trying to improve your business and do that, you would have tons more time.
Right.
You know, that it would save you time in the long run. But I think people, that's probably the biggest thing. People are, you know, I just don't have time to come. And you know what, if you're not going to come and use the benefits, it's not,
Yeah,
you know,
why spend
I
money?
mean, you're still getting value because we're still doing things at the Capitol that help every single subcontractor out there. So, in my opinion, they all ought to join just for that reason, because they're getting the benefits of the things we're doing. But you got to come and you've got to be a part of it. You've got to meet the people, and
Yeah.
you've got. But you know, it's so nice. If nothing else, sometimes you just. You know, everybody gets down on, has a day where everything has gone wrong, and you think, oh, I'm the only one. I'm the only one that, you know, can't figure out how to keep employees, or I'm the only one that can't figure out how to handle this problem. And then you go and you see everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's
right.
just a feel good thing that you can feel everybody's in the same boat you are. You're not failing. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just
just
that's
a
part of it.
community.
And you have people to call. Hey, how do you handle your PTO, or how do you handle your different things? And you just, God, it just opens a whole bunch of doors of other people who are doing the same thing you're doing. They are, but they're in a different trade, so that, you know, they may not, you can call them, they're not your competitors, but yet they're still doing the same, they're still bidding work, they're still working with the same GCs. I mean, I had a case that early on when I was in there where they I was on a job, and you know, if you're in the room, there's probably 4 or 5 other people on the same job as you are.
Yeah.
Everybody was getting paid, and I wasn't. And I thought, what's the deal? Why am I not getting paid? We hadn't done anything wrong that I knew, or that they were holding our number. And somebody said, oh, who you sending your pay request to? And I said, oh, I sent it, let's say Joe. And they said, oh, well, if you send it to Jim, that's the problem. Joe lets it sit on his desk. If you send it to Jim, you'll get paid. I got paid like clockwork throughout the rest of the job. I mean, just little things like that. But that's huge. I mean, especially in the beginning, you need your money.
If somebody's
Well, you
thinking
always
of
need
not
money.
joining an association like that because of competitors are there or whatever it is, don't worry about it. Like, the reality is competition's good. It's what keeps the markets moving. You want competitors there.
Yeah.
You're going to learn from them. You're going to realize that you don't have to be enemies all the time. And it
you're
proves that there's
educating them,
you're
because
exactly.
A lot of times the ones that are beating you are the ones that
They don't know their costs.
They don't. That's what I was getting ready to say. They don't. There's something they're leaving out. They probably don't know the insurance, or you know, they're not. And if you get them in there, they educates them too. And that's what we like to do. We like to think that the GCs and all those are going to look at ASA subcontractors and realize that we are the
Sophisticated.
sophisticated, that we know, you know, we are going to sign their contracts. We are going to, you know, we're going to do the things, and that, you know, our safety is above and beyond, and we just do a better job. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is make everybody in the organization a better subcontractor and a better business person.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's really great. I really appreciate you being on and for sharing so much about your life story, your business journey, about ASA OK. I think it's a huge value that any commercial subcontractor out there, and even GCs, should consider joining.
Now, GCs can't join. They're partners with us.
Well, so they should partner with ASA
Yeah,
OK.
they
then.
should partner. We are a subcontractor organization, and some are not. That's what differentiates us from some of the other organizations out there, that we are the voice of the subcontractor.
Okay. So there are some...
And suppliers.
Yeah, and suppliers.
Yeah.
So definitely go and look at it. If you're in Oklahoma, obviously, we want them to connect with you, Tami. How can they do that?
My email is Tami, Tami, at asaok.org, or we have a website,
asaok.org.
asaok.org. That's right.
Okay.
That'll be
And
in the
then
show notes.
the national is ASA Online.
Okay.
And there's a place on there, there's a map, and you can actually hit the map, and it'll tell you if there is a chapter in your state, and if so, who to call.
Okay, perfect. And that's ASA OK online.
No, just ASA Online.
ASAonline.com or .org?
.com. It's .com.
Okay.
Okay, ASAonline.com. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tami, for chatting, and we'll probably bring you back for some specific things.
Yeah, it really is fun. You can tell by listening that Tammy's the boss. And you can tell by looking
very
just in her
passionate
eyes.
about a lot
She's
of things.
passionate about it, and there's not you don't see doubt and equivocation in her eyes. So it's really this is really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Thank
fun.
you.
Really, really
It
awesome.
was fun. I'm glad I appreciate y'all asking me.
I told
to
you
be
it'd be
on here.
fun, didn't
yeah,
I?
you did tell me.
Yeah.
I was a little scared, but you did
I
tell me it'd be
don't.
fun.
Well, there you go. You were scared and you showed up.
I did.
You mentioned scared earlier and things too. So
All right. Well, we'll see you, Tami. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll chat with you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to The Cashflow Contractor. Check out our website in the show notes or visit thecashflowcontractor.com.
What's up, Cashflow Contractors? Khalil here. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this episode. It means the world to us that you're listening. I've got a favor to ask. So we are looking for contractors who would like to have a free consult with myself and with Martin for about 30 minutes to an hour. We'll basically just ask you questions about your business, about what it's like for you to work as a contractor, and then we will answer any of your questions specific to your business. Then we'll make that a live episode for other contractors to learn from, to engage with. And we think it's a great way for people to really see clear, specific answers to problems that contractors have. So if that interests you at all, we're not going to share any of your information. You don't even need to say your name on the episode, but I think we want to get some more of these episodes out there. And if you're willing to do that, we've got a link in the show notes that allows you to just submit a form for a consult. Then we'll schedule it with you and record it, and we'll put you live on the podcast. So if that interests you, please check it out in the show notes. If not, no worries. Or if you know someone else that you think would be interested in it, send it to them. That'd be great. But appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we hope that you're finding less stress, more time, and more money. Thanks.